You know that guy at the bike meet who is still riding the same bike he bought in 2005? The one with 120,000 miles on the clock that still fires up on the first try? You probably think he got lucky. Or that he is some kind of mechanic wizard, spending every weekend wrenching in his garage. Here's the truth. He is not lucky, and he is probably not doing anything you could not do. The problem is, you have been following advice from people who have never owned a bike past 50,000 miles. Most riders never see that number because they are killing their engines with habits they think are harmless. The Japanese figured out extreme longevity decades ago. It's not about expensive parts or obsessive maintenance schedules. It is about 15 brutally simple habits that separate the legends from the scrap heap. These are not tips. They are non-negotiables if you want your bike to outlive your riding career. And I am breaking down every single one. Let's start with the thing that is probably killing your engine right now, how you treat it in the first 2 minutes after you thumb that starter. Secret number 1 is what Japanese mechanics call the handshake warm-up. When you start a cold engine, the oil is thick. It is not flowing freely through all those tight tolerances in your crankcase. Your cam lobes, your piston rings, your valve train are all running with minimal lubrication for those first 30 seconds to a minute. Here is what most riders do. They fire it up, let it idle for maybe 10 seconds, then immediately pull out into traffic. The engine is cold, the oil is still cold, and now you are asking it to handle load. That is metal on metal contact happening inside your engine. Every single cold start where you do this is shaving life off critical components. The Japanese approach is different. You start the engine and you let it idle for 20 to 60 seconds, just long enough for oil pressure to stabilize and start circulating properly. Then, ride gently. No hard throttle, no high engine speed. You are letting the engine warm up under light load, which is actually better than sitting there idling for minutes. The oil warms up faster when it is circulating under gentle riding conditions, and you are not dumping unburned fuel into your crankcase from extended cold idling. Secret number 2 is the shutdown ritual, and this one is going to annoy you because nobody teaches it. After a long highway run, sustained high-speed riding, or sitting in slow traffic on a hot day, your engine becomes heat-soaked. The oil is hot, the coolant is hot, the exhaust is glowing. If you pull into your driveway and kill the ignition immediately, all that heat has nowhere to go. It just sits there, cooking your oil and breaking down the additives that protect your engine. The fix is simple, but it requires discipline. After hard riding, high RPM, hot days, slow traffic, or any sustained load, let the bike idle for 30 to 60 seconds before you shut it down. This gives the oil a chance to circulate and carry heat away from the hottest parts of the engine. It gives the coolant time to do its job. It prevents localized hotspots that warp components over time. For turbocharged bikes or bikes that see track use, this becomes even more critical. Secret number 3 is about revolutions per minute, and it is going to contradict what you've probably heard. Most riders think lugging the engine at low revolutions per minute is safer than revving it out. They shift early, keep the revs under 4,000, and think they are being gentle. You are not. You are destroying your drivetrain. When you lug an engine, when you are in too high a gear at too low a revolutions per minute, you create massive cylinder pressure without the momentum to handle it. The piston is trying to compress air and fuel, but it is moving slowly. That creates stress on the connecting rods, the crankshaft, and the bearings. Over time, this causes premature wear that shows up as bearing noise, oil consumption, and eventually catastrophic failure. The Japanese engineers designed your engine to operate in a specific design range of revolutions per minute. For most bikes, that is somewhere between 4,000 and 8,000 revolutions per minute, depending on the engine. Staying in that range where the engine is making power efficiently and the oil pressure is high, is actually easier on the engine than lugging it at 2,500 revolutions per minute in sixth gear. The real cost of ignoring these secrets is obvious to mechanics. Engines that should last 100,000 miles are toast at 30,000 because riders never learned the temperature gradient problem. Your engine expands and contracts with heat. If you do not manage that process correctly, you create stress fractures, warped surfaces, and oil breakdown that compounds into expensive failures. Temperature management keeps the engine alive. Short trips are the silent killer most riders ignore. Secret number 4 is understanding why short trips are worse than letting your bike sit. When you start a cold engine and only ride it for 10 or 15 minutes, you never get the oil hot enough to burn off the moisture and contamination that accumulate during combustion. Water vapor condenses inside your crankcase. Fuel that did not burn completely ends up in your oil. Acids form from combustion byproducts. All of that stays in your oil, turning it into a corrosive sludge that eats away at bearings and internal surfaces. This is why bikes that only see short commutes often have worse engine wear than bikes that rack up highway miles. The highway bike gets hot. The oil does its job. The short trip bike is essentially marinating its internals in contaminated oil between every ride. The fix is not complicated. If you are only doing short trips, change your oil more frequently. Forget the manual's recommendation of 3,000 or 5,000 miles. If you're not getting your oil up to full operating temperature regularly, cut that interval in half. Once a week, take the long way home. Get that engine hot enough to cook off the moisture and acids. Secret number 5 is the coolant schedule that nobody questions. Your manual probably says to change the coolant every 2 years. That is a baseline, not a guarantee. Here's what actually happens to coolant over time. The corrosion inhibitors break down. Antifreeze properties degrade. The pH level shifts. Eventually, your coolant is not protecting your engine from corrosion anymore. It is just colored water sitting in your cooling system, slowly eating away at aluminum components and forming scale deposits that restrict flow. 2 years is safe for most riders. But if you ride hard, live in extreme heat, or your coolant tests out of specification for pH or freeze protection, shorten that interval. Japanese mechanics test their coolant annually and change it when the chemistry says it is done, not when the calendar says so. They have seen what happens when you do not. Radiators develop pinhole leaks, water pump seals fail, cylinder head gaskets blow because of localized overheating. The cost of fresh coolant is maybe $40. The cost of a new radiator or a head gasket job is 10 times that. Secret number 6 is brake fluid, and this one is critical if you have ABS, the anti-lock braking system. Brake fluid is hygroscopic. It absorbs moisture from the air. Over time, that moisture lowers the boiling point of your brake fluid and introduces corrosion into your brake system. On a bike without ABS, that's bad enough. On a bike with ABS, it is catastrophic. ABS systems have tight tolerances and sensitive valves. When moisture-contaminated brake fluid starts to corrode those components, you get valve sticking, pressure loss, and eventually complete ABS failure. The warning light comes on, and now you are looking at a repair bill that starts at $1,000. The interval for brake fluid depends on your climate and how you ride. 12 to 24 months is the range. Humid climates shorten that interval. You can test this yourself. Buy a brake fluid test strip for $5. If it shows more than 3% water content, your fluid is done. Flush it. Fresh fluid is cheap. A BS module replacement is not. What happens inside your engine when you ignore fluid degradation? Metal particles circulate, acids etch surfaces, seals dry out and crack. Heat builds up in places it should not. All of this happens slowly and invisibly, until one day your bike just stops being reliable. Now let's talk about the fluids and filters that separate cheap maintenance from actual protection. Secret number 7 is transmission oil on shaft drives. And yes, it needs changing. I know your manual says lifetime fill or gives you some absurd interval like 30,000 miles. That's marketing, not engineering. Transmission oil breaks down. Gear teeth shed microscopic metal particles. Those particles circulate through your gearbox, acting like sandpaper on synchronizers and bearings. Here is what happens when you do not change it. First, you will notice the shifts getting notchy. Then, you will hear a whine from the transmission under load. Eventually, you will get a gear that will not engage properly, or a bearing that grenades and takes out half your transmission with it. Japanese mechanics. Change transmission oil every 12,000 miles, sometimes sooner if the bike sees hard use. The oil is cheap. The transmission rebuild is $4,000. Secret number 8 is the oil filter scam, and this one makes me angry because it is so preventable. Cheap oil filters use cheap filter media. They let particles through that quality filters would catch. Those particles, metal shavings from normal engine wear, carbon deposits, and silica dust, circulate through your engine and embed themselves in bearing surfaces. Over time, this causes accelerated wear on your crankshaft bearings, cam bearings, and piston rings. You will start burning oil. You will hear bearing noise. Your oil pressure will drop. And all of this could have been prevented by spending an extra $10 on a quality filter. OEM filters exist for a reason. They are engineered to match your engine's flow rate and filtration needs. Use them. Secret number 9 is the front sprocket area on chain-driven bikes. Most riders ignore the front sprocket cover. That area packs with chain paste, dirt, and grit. If it is not cleaned regularly, seals fail, bearings wear, and oil leaks follow. When those seals go, you can dump engine oil onto your rear tire, and that turns your bike into a greasy death trap. On shaft-driven bikes, the final drive has its own oil reservoir. That oil needs changing every 10,000 to 15,000 miles. If you do not change it, the hypoid gears inside start to wear. You will hear a clunk when you shift into first. You will feel vibration through the pegs. Eventually, the gears strip, the shaft locks up, and you are stranded on the side of the road with a repair bill that starts at $2,000. Secret number 10 is battery maintenance, and this depends on your battery type. If you run an old-style serviceable lead-acid battery, check the electrolyte level annually. If the plates become exposed, the battery's capacity drops permanently. It will not hold a charge. Your voltage regulator has to work harder to compensate. That extra load fries your stator. Now you are replacing a battery, a regulator, and a stator, all because you did not add distilled water once a year. If you run AGM or lithium batteries, skip the water check. Those are sealed. Instead, focus on voltage health and your charging system. A failing regulator or stator will kill even a good battery, and you will not know until you are stranded. The cascade failure pattern is real. One ignored fluid leads to 3 expensive repairs. Your final drive oil goes bad, it takes out the seals, contaminates your clutch, and now you are rebuilding the entire back end of your bike. Real-world cost comparison. Doing it right costs maybe $300 a year in fluids and filters. Doing it over costs thousands. Fluids keep things moving, but the mechanical connection points are where most bikes fall apart from pure neglect. Secret number 11 is chain tension, and everything you think you know is probably wrong. Most riders think a tight chain is a safe chain. They adjust it until there is barely any slack, thinking they are preventing wear and improving power transfer. You are doing the opposite. A chain that is too tight puts constant load on your output shaft bearing, your swing arm pivot, and your rear wheel bearing. Those components are designed to handle the dynamic loads of riding, not the static tension of an over-tightened chain. Over time, that constant pressure wears out bearings prematurely. You will hear a grinding noise from your output shaft, your swing arm will develop play, your rear wheel bearing will howl. The correct chain tension has slack in it. Most manufacturers specify between 20 and 30 millimeters of vertical movement at the tightest point of the chain. That seems like a lot, but it is engineered that way for a reason. The chain needs room to flex as the suspension compresses and extends. Too tight, and you are fighting the suspension geometry. Too loose, and you get slap and impact loads. But between those extremes, slightly loose is always better than slightly tight. A properly tensioned chain wears evenly across the sprocket teeth. An over-tightened chain wears the teeth into hooks and creates a notchy feel when you roll the bike in neutral. That is the sound of money leaving your wallet, because now you need a chain and sprockets instead of just a chain. Secret number 12 is battery cable corrosion, and this problem is invisible until it becomes catastrophic. Your battery cables connect to terminals. Those terminals are exposed to air, moisture, and vibration. Over time, corrosion forms at the connection points. That corrosion creates electrical resistance. Resistance generates heat. Heat accelerates corrosion. It becomes a death spiral. Here's what happens. Your starter has to pull more current to overcome the resistance. Your voltage regulator sees inconsistent voltage and overcompensates. Your ECU gets voltage spikes that fry sensitive components. Your lights dim. Your fuel pump struggles. And eventually, something expensive fails. Usually, your ECU or your stator, because of a connection issue that could have been fixed with a wire brush and dielectric grease. Check your battery terminals every oil change. If you see white or green powder, that is corrosion. Clean it off. Apply dielectric grease. Tighten the connections. This takes 5 minutes and prevents failures that cost hundreds. Secret number 13 is the forgotten lube points, and most riders do not even know these exist. Your clutch cable needs lubrication. Your throttle cables need lubrication. Your side stand pivot needs lubrication. Your brake and shift lever pivots need lubrication. When these points run dry, friction compounds everywhere. A dry clutch cable creates a stiff lever, feel, and inconsistent engagement. A dry throttle cable causes sticky throttle return, which is a safety issue. A dry side stand pivot means your stand will not retract properly, and one day you may drag it through a corner. A dry brake lever pivot causes inconsistent brake feel and reduced stopping power. The fix is simple. Use a cable luber tool and some light oil, or spray lithium grease on pivot points. Do this twice a year. It takes 20 minutes total and prevents a cascade of small problems that add up to big frustration. Secret number 14 is suspension service, and this is the one that separates riders who care from riders who do not. Your fork seals and shock seals are holding oil under pressure. That oil provides damping. Over time, seals wear and oil leaks past them. Damping performance degrades. By 20,000 miles, your suspension is objectively worse than it was new, even if it still works. You will not notice this happening because it is gradual. But your bike does not handle as well. It does not absorb bumps as well. It wallows in corners. And when those seals finally let go completely, you will have fork oil all over your front brake rotor, which is a great way to test your life insurance policy. Japanese riders service suspension every 15,000 to 20,000 miles. They change the fork oil, inspect the seals, and replace them if needed. Rear shocks should be inspected regularly. Rebuild them if they are serviceable. Replace them if they are not. This is not cheap. It is a few $100s, but it keeps the bike handling the way it was designed to handle. More importantly, it prevents the sudden failure mode where your front brake becomes useless because of oil contamination. The domino effect is real. One dry cable creates 3 other problems. Your throttle sticks, so you compensate by gripping harder, which fatigues your hand, which makes you less smooth with the throttle, which increases wear on your clutch. It all connects. All of this mechanical discipline means nothing without the one mindset shift that makes it sustainable. Secret 15 is the Japanese concept of Kaizen, which translates to continuous improvement. In manufacturing, it means constantly refining processes to eliminate waste and improve quality. Applied to motorcycle ownership, it means you are never just fixing problems. You are improving systems before they fail. Most riders operate in reactive mode. Something breaks and they fix it. Something leaks and they patch it. They are always behind, always catching up to the bike's deterioration. This is exhausting and expensive because by the time something breaks, it usually causes collateral damage to other components. The Kaizen approach is different. You are not waiting for the chain to wear out. You check tension every 500 miles and adjust before it becomes a problem. You're not waiting for your coolant to turn brown. You change it annually because you know what happens when you do not. You're not waiting for your clutch cable to snap. You lubricate it twice a year because prevention is cheaper than roadside assistance. This philosophy prevents the catastrophic failure cycle most riders experience. They ignore maintenance until something major breaks. That major failure damages other components. Now they face a repair bill of several $1,000s that makes them question whether the bike is even worth fixing. Some of them sell it as is and buy another bike, then repeat the same cycle because they never learned the lesson. The maintenance journal habit makes this sustainable. Get a small notebook. Log every service, every fluid change, every adjustment. Note the mileage, the date, and what you did. Over time, patterns emerge. You will notice that your chain needs adjustment every 600 miles, so you build that into your routine. You will see that your brake pads last 8,000 miles, so you order replacements at 7,000. You will track your oil consumption and catch a developing problem before it becomes a crisis. This is the difference between riders who make it to 100,000 miles and riders who do not. It is not luck. It is not expensive parts. It is discipline applied consistently over time. The Japanese figured this out decades ago, and their bikes reflect it. The philosophy works on any motorcycle if you are willing to put in the work. If you only remember one thing from this entire video, make it the shutdown ritual after hard riding. That 30 to 60 seconds of idle time before you kill the ignition prevents more heat-related failures than any other single habit. It's boring. It's not dramatic. But it works. These aren't secrets. They are discipline, and most riders don't have it. They want the romance of riding without the responsibility of ownership. Hit like and subscribe so we can keep building a community of riders who actually make it past 50,000 miles.